Hi everybody, my name is Jim. I'm the owner of Sprague Woodturning. Welcome to my channel. So I've been asked this a number of times, and that's to cover a sharpening video. So that's what this video is. I'm going to get right into it. We'll start with the grinder and then we'll move on to how I sharpen the hand tools and a lot of the safety concerns that maybe a lot of people overlook when they're sharpening. Alright, so here's the grinder I use. I switched over to this about a year ago. And it's the 8-inch low-speed 1 horsepower grinder from Rikon. It comes with a 60 and a 120 grit wheel. This is how you'll get, if you were to buy something like this, it all comes like this. You'll note over here, I've got a CBN, that's a diamond coated wheel, and it's too large to have all of the protection around it. So that's why there's nothing on it. This is not really so much a concern. These wheels, of course, they're stone wheels, and they have flown apart in the past. Actually, when I was in the military as a mechanic, we would have, a couple of these on the shop floor, and you don't know who was on this before you. You could have 40 guys and girls working in a workshop. So the person before you could have damaged this wheel, and then when you turn this on, if you're standing in front of it, it could fly apart and injure you. So whenever you approach a grinder like this, you should always stand to the side when you turn the thing on, because if this happens to fly apart, if you're standing in front of it, you're probably not going to like the results of it, I'll tell you that. So I think that it's fairly rare that these things do fly apart. But, when you're in your own workshop, you know that you're the only one that's used it. So, you know that you probably haven't even used it. But as a good safety practice, always stand to the side. As you can see, the Rikon here comes with a kind of a, I don't know. It's a shield, but it's not much of a shield. It's not going to stop much. It's just really for sparks. The tool rest. Always make sure your tool rest is probably, within 1/8 of an inch from the wheel. So you've got a little bit of clearance, but you don't want it too tight. At the very top here is a piece of steel that slides down, and that keeps sparks from flying down onto your work. So I'll call it a spark arrestor. And anyway, it's highly unlikely that one of these wheels will ever fly apart, but you don't want to be on the business end of it if it does. The other thing too is, this throws sparks. The CBN grinding wheels, not so much. So it's not really that big of a deal while the guard assembly is not on there. And like I said, this is not going to fly apart because it's a solid piece of metal. One other concern, where this is throwing sparks, just be aware that if you've got fuel cans anywhere in the vicinity, that you definitely don't want sparks landing on top of them or anything else that's going to be flammable. So anyway, as this wheel grinds down, you should adjust this stuff in just to make sure that it's all good to go. This is adjustable. It's got fixed positions, so you can't really fine-tune and say you want it there where you can't. As soon as you tighten it down, it wants to slide into the other spot. So that's one thing I don't really care about it. It does come with a light. Here's the light. It's pretty much garbage. I don't even use it. I've got another light, one of these, whatever you call those lights, above it, so I can move it to wherever I want to when I'm sharpening, and that way I've got good light if I need it. There is an exhaust port on the back. I shouldn't have to say this, but I will. Do not hook this up to your dust collection system. If you do, this thing's throwing sparks, and that could be a major explosion. So just let the sparks go. I have yet to see anything from a grinder start a fire. I know that there has been, but I personally haven't. But do not hook dust collection to this unless it is dedicated dust collection that is meant for sparks, like you would see maybe in a welding shop. This is a Wolverine Jig, and as you can see, it's quite adjustable. I actually just measured it, and you can almost sharpen a tool that's 25 inches in length, so that's pretty impressive. So it slides in and out, and then there's a lock, and of course you put the base of your gouge in here and then rest it on the wheel and sharpen your gouge. That way you always get a constant grind. You know, I know there's a lot of people out there that can grind without jigs, and I envy them. I'm not one of them. I have to have jigs in order to get good consistent results, so that's why I have the jigs. So this is a homemade jig. This is a way to save money. Now, I like the 5/8 bowl gouge from David Ellsworth. If you've been here for a while, you know that. And I bought this adapter. You can see it says David Ellsworth right on it. Many years ago. I think maybe Craft Supplies USA. I don't know if it's still available or not, but you know, it fits in here, and then you just grind your gouge. Anyway, my camera shut down. So anyway, you just slide the gouge onto the jig. There's I think it's a 2-inch hole down in here. So you put the gouge in, put the jig up against it, and then tighten this down. And there you go. You're ready to stick this in the jig here, and you'll get nice, even, consistent grinds every time you do it. Alright, so this is a diamond coated wheel dresser, and you just, when the grinder's on, you move it back and forth and it cleans off anything and it makes the wheel flat. So if you don't have one of these, highly recommend doing that. This one needs to be dressed, so I will show that here. What else? Alright, so if you've been here a while, you know that I use a lot of hot melt glue. And what can happen is the hot melt glue will transfer to the CBN wheel and to the other wheel over here as well. So the way that you clean this off is with isopropanol alcohol. And what I do is I just I put a rag underneath here, and I'm actually going to show this. Put a rag under there, dump it over there, let it sit for a little bit, and then scrub it with a brass brush, and it will take all of that hot melt glue off, and I'll show you that. This comes with the Wolverine Jig that's over here. You can pop this out and use this, and what you do is you take the tool rest off of here, it goes on here, and then you know, you kind of slide it in and out. It's actually easier than to loosen off these bolts. To slide the tool rest in and out, it's kind of a pain. But I don't use this because I don't really use this all that much, so it's not really that big of a deal for me. And then of course, when if I did want to use it, then I'd have to take this out and insert this in order to use it. So anyway, it comes with the jig. And again, I'll put a link in the description to all this stuff so that you guys can check it out if you want. That's really about it. I mean, you can actually buy this whole setup here. When I initially started turning, it wasn't really all that available. So that's why I ended up making this support. And now that, and of course this was adjustable so that I could slide it in and out, because as these grinding wheels wear down, then of course to maintain the same angle, you have to slide it in and out. So now that I'm using the CBN wheels, that's not really a requirement anymore. It will stay true because, you know, it's not wearing down, right? So there's really no requirement for this. So I've locked this right down in place and have no intentions of moving it. Okay, well anyway, let's dress this. I'll show you how that's done and clean this, and then we'll actually do some sharpening. Alright, so because I use all that hot melt glue, it gets transferred to the wheel. Isopropanol alcohol, and what I do is I just pour it on the wheel, and just try to wet the surface of the wheel. And you can work in sections, and then just use a brass brush to clean it. And this goes for anything. If you happen to grind something on here that, you know, maybe you shouldn't have, and it coats your wheel, try using the alcohol to get it off. It may work. Yeah, I should be wearing gloves here, actually. So make sure you wear gloves when you do this. And the other thing too is, of course, alcohol is very flammable. So before you turn this on, make sure you take the air hose and blow this all off, just so that, you know, you don't have a fire. And of course, alcohol, when it burns, you probably can't even see it that it's on fire. So it's important to make sure that you remove all the residue before you actually do it. Now, the surface of that has been restored. I can actually, before I did this, you couldn't really feel it all that great. Now you can. So if you've got one of these CBN wheels that looks like it's kind of clogged up and dirty, try using the alcohol method to clean it. You might be able to restore the surface again. Crisp and clean. Alright, so I'm going to put my shield on. Stand out of the way when it gets turned on. So it takes a while for this to spool down. I should have mentioned that this is an 80 grit wheel, and over here on the CBN side is a 180. I originally had a 600 grit CBN wheel, and I found that it was just too fine. So I switched back to the 180, and I'm perfectly happy with the way that the CBN wheel now sharpens my tools. Alright, so the first thing that we will sharpen will be the parting tool. And as you can see, this has got like a diamond point, so the center of the tool is thicker than up on the edges. And this is a good parting tool because it won't get typically jammed in anything you're working on. So if you're just using a parting tool like this, get the focus like this, well, these tend to really get stuck and get hot, and that's why this is discolored actually. So initial setup, pull the Wolverine Jig out, set the parting tool on the surface of the stone, and then all I do is I move the arm in and out until it's sitting flat on there. There, I think. It's hard to tell, camera's in the way. So you can see how the tip of this is supposed to be right on the point. Hoping that that's going to pick that up. So you see it's a little off, right? I don't see this as a huge problem, but try to keep the very tip of the tool on this high point on the tool. All right, so what I'm going to do is keep this off the grinder. I'll start it and then place it down, and you'll see me just kind of rotating back and forth until I get a nice shiny surface on both sides, and then you know that's sharp. beside my grinder, this is some water. So as the tool gets hot, you can quench it. That way you don't end up burning the steel. So usually I got more in it. It's getting kind of low. But anyway, that's right beside the grinder. So have that on hand. That way you don't burn your tools. Anyway, that's what the tool looks like when it comes off the grinder. You know, sometimes I find you'll see me kind of move the parting tool this way or that way. And that's because sometimes it'll cut better in this direction than it will in this configuration here. It's just probably got a burr on the end. So yeah, I could tell that right now that's the sharper end. So anyway, that's a really good grind, and I'm happy with that. Alright, so this is your typical spindle gouge. Again, this one doesn't really need to be sharpened, but I'll show it anyway. Sometimes I like to cut back these upper wings a little bit. I don't know, it just depends. Depends on maybe what you're doing. Yeah, I find sometimes it's nice to have just swept back a little bit. That way when you're running along the tool rest, it doesn't necessarily catch. Anyway, this is a side view of that rig. So again, set that on there. Lock it down in place. Shield on. Anyway, there you go. You know, this thing is way sharp. I don't need anything sharper than this when I'm at the lathe. You know, I mean, you can hone this and you can do all the stuff, but you know, I just don't do it because I don't see the need for it. Focus on there. Yes, no, there it is. All right, let's do the combination gouge and skew. Skewchy. All right, so this one's a little different. You have to first grind the face here. If you only grind on this side, this will get shorter and shorter and shorter. Again, I try to maintain the angle that the tools come with. I know some people are going to ask. You know, I try to maintain the same angle. I don't have any measuring devices to do that, and I do kind of eyeball that. So what I do first is put the tool upside down. Again, until it fully contacts the wheel. Then I'll sharpen this face, turn it around, and then sharpen this. I don't think it's going to be the same angle. Actually, it is the same angle. So good, you don't have to move your tool rest after that. There you go. That thing, again, is razor sharp. I don't really see the need to do anything else other than that. And that's on a 120 grit wheel. All right, I don't use a skew, so I'm not going to show that because I rarely use it. Let's sharpen the bowl gouge. That'll be the last thing. All right, so here's what I've done. I've drilled in here, and I've actually inserted a toonie in here. You want a piece of metal in there for the gouge to butt up against. If you just leave it wood, the more you jam that in there, the further that this will probably creep into it. So it's best to use a piece of metal to go up against it. So, put it in, bring up the jig, and lock it down. I was just on Craft Supplies USA's website, and they do make something similar to this, but it's kind of roundish. Same idea, same principle. Alright, so we're all set up and ready to go here. The Ellsworth grind is a 60-degree grind, and I don't really have any way of measuring this. Maybe I should buy something, but you know, typically what I do is when I get a new gouge, and if you're curious, when I was in full production, I would burn up probably 2 of these a year, to give you an idea. So when I would get the new gouge, I would set it in here and then rest it on the wheel and see if it was actually where it was supposed to be set, and it usually was. So little difficult to do when you've got the natural stone or the stone wheels, because of course they shrink, and then this rig you'd have to move it in and out accordingly. But with the CBN you don't have to worry about that. All right, let's anyway, I just set it in the jig, move it back and forth. As you can see, it's got long swept back sides on it. You'll see some grinding marks here. That's probably because I went too far. And I do try to move across the wheel and use up the entire wheel as I'm doing it. That way, I mean, if you just always did it in one spot here, you're gonna, you know, probably burn out these diamonds long before, you know, the wheel should be. So I try to move it across. So when I do the close-up on this, you'll see I'm probably moving it across the surface of the wheel quite a bit. All right, so there you go. You know, that is more than sharp enough for me. And as you've seen on my channel, I get pretty good results with it. All right, let's finish this up. Well, all right, that's it for the video. I know that a lot of people have been waiting for this, and hopefully it doesn't disappoint. I'm not real, to be honest with you, I'm not great with sharpening. You know, I'm better on the lathe than I am on the grinder. So, but you know, you've seen the results that I get off of the lathe, so that directly goes to grinding. So, you know, there's all kinds of different setups, and you know, wet grinding, slow speed grinding. I started with a 6-inch grinder. You definitely want to use an 8-inch grinder. A lot of the tools are designed to be sharpened on an 8-inch grinder, so if you've got a 6-inch, it's probably time to upgrade. That's one of the reasons why I upgraded. I got by on a 6-inch grinder, but it wasn't giving me really the results that I wanted. But the 8-inch grinder certainly does. I highly recommend getting CBN wheels too, the diamond coated wheels. You don't have to fool around with jigs in and out, and you know, they're just. And the other thing too is, besides cleaning them, if you're not using the hot melt glue method like I am, you probably may not ever have to clean it. It'll probably get dirty at some point. But anyway, use the alcohol to clean it off, and you should be back in business. Light pressure. There's no need for anybody for you to ever push hard on these tools when you're grinding them. Just very light pressure, and keep dipping it in the water, cooling the tool off, so that first of all you can handle it, and you know, that you don't burn the tool. That's the other big thing. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. I guess not. Anyway, those are predominantly the tools that I use here every day. So if you're doing bowls, then that's probably really all you need. If you're doing spindle work, well, that's a whole other thing. But I don't do spindle work. I'm a bowl guy. I want to make bowls. So I just want to take the time right now to thank everybody that has watched my videos this year, has put up with the ads, watching the ads. The people that have bought from me, thank you so much. I've had a great year here on YouTube, and it's all because of you guys. So I really appreciate that. My family and I, thank you so much. The sponsors that have sponsored my channel, Designer Epoxy, fantastic products. Pigments to the epoxy. You know, I watch a lot of YouTube videos involving epoxy, and there's very few that I think could even rival Designer Epoxy. Sandpaper.ca, again, fantastic price point and a fantastic product. Starbond Adhesives. I don't know how you can be a wood turner and not use super glues. Like, I use it all the time. And of course, Hunter Tool Systems. Hunter Tool Systems come on this year, and Mike Hunter makes great tools. You see me use the Hercules a ton, along with the Osprey. Fantastic tools. All of those sponsors, please check them out if you need anything. And, you know, thank you so much for providing discount codes to my subscribers. And hopefully this year coming is going to be even a better year. So thank you. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to do next week because I'm actually shooting this before Christmas. I need a week off. But I've got some stuff rolling around in my head, and hopefully I'll put something up cool for you next week. Well, that's it. Take care. Stay safe. It's New Year's Eve, so don't drink too much. See you next week.